So if you are truly diehard Abu Garcia for life, then you should know by now that just like with Shimano and DAIWA, the best tackle for Abu Garcia comes from Japan. Now in regards to the reels, you got all sorts of various models from your bait finesse reels like the REVO LTX, the REVO UltraCast, and then you have your special signature models like the LX992Z, which also incidentally is a bait finesse reel. And thanks to a true diehard Abu Garcia for life guy and a friend of the channel, we get to play with another signature reel from JDM Abu Garcia. Now his name is Billy, and he sent a reel to the channel before, the MG Extreme 2, and he has bought several reels and wanted to send them to the channel to get tested, and we're going to start off with this one, the REVO DEEZ 8. And just take a look at this reel. It is stunning. As you can see, it's shiny black with just enough chrome and blue accents to set that off. And then it's really set off by these cork knobs. Now generally you see reels that have, black and red, but you rarely see reels with black and blue, but it looks like blue is making a comeback. And there we go, DEEZ 8. Now I kind of giggled when I got the reel because if you grew up in the, I guess, mid to late 90s, there was this running joke going around that if you got someone to ask you a question, you would respond with "DEEZ nuts." And yes, I was one of those jackasses who did that. So yeah, this is a signature model for one of Abu Garcia's professional bass anglers, who I believe actually competes in the American Bass Elite Series, and his name is Daisuke Aoki. But unlike the LX992Z, I don't see his name anywhere on here. But he's the one that put the components together to make this reel. Now let's go over the specs real quick. This reel is basically the same reel as the LTX, meaning it's got a magnesium frame with C6 carbon side plates, so it is very, very light. But unlike the LTX BF8, which is a bait finesse reel, this is a, I guess, general purpose bass reel that has been, I guess, tuned and designed by this Aoki guy. Now another basic spec is that it has 9+1 bearings, which I believe it says right there 10 bearings. But let me tell you the parts of this reel that were, I guess, designed or implemented by Aoki. Now the first thing is they swapped the spool out for a more standard depth spool. The bearings are going to be the ceramic hybrid bearings, probably the same ones you get in the MG Extreme, and they are very quiet. So I don't know if it's going to be just the spool bearings or if all the 9+1 bearings are ceramics, but they are pretty quiet. Hopefully they'll perform as well as the bearings on the MG Extreme 2. As you can see, it's got carbon components all around, the handle and the drag star. It's got a clicking drag, and that's something that more and more people are wanting out of their bait casters these days. Now of course he went for the cork knobs. Now these are coated in plastic, and I plan to keep them on while I have this reel. Now they are pretty decent looking, but you can see there are some places where there are pits that they put filler, but that's okay because I've got some very expensive Shimano Umea cork knobs that have worse filler than these. And the best tuning feature about this reel is that it comes with an extra shallow spool. Now these extra spools are becoming more and more popular, but let's take a look at this spool right here. So yeah, it is shallower than the standard spool, but it's definitely not as shallow as Abu Garcia's dedicated bay finesse spools. You can see it's not ported in the middle. Feels relatively light. But yeah, this reel, I've been looking at it. I didn't really know what the big deal about the DEEZ series were, because there was a model that preceded this reel, the DEEZ 6, and of course the numbers are going to indicate the gear ratio, and this reel is an 8.0 to 1, and that's the only gear ratio it comes in. But this is definitely a step up in looks from the old model it replaces. Now it also comes with the MagTrax 3 brake system, which is, I guess, a step up from the standard MagTrax that come in the other magnetic brake Abus. But yeah, this reel is really nice looking, and of course it's got the click and spool tension. Still not the precise clicks you get from, you know, a DAIWA or upper end Shimano, but it is nice to have one. And the thumb bar, it is solid, no mush, no wiggle, no slop. A little bit when it's depressed, but when it's not engaged, it's pretty solid. Something that the American Abu Garcias have a problem with. Now the price on this reel, if you want to import one, is going to be probably around $300. I'll put a price up from I guess Digitaca, what it costs from them. But this reel is priced to compete with Shimano's new 2020 METANIUM, so it's definitely got some stiff competition. Now I'm not aware of any DAIWAs in that price range, but yeah, this is not a cheap reel, but just like with a lot of JDM Abu Garcias, you do get quite a bit for your money versus the competition. So with that being said, let's pull out the scale and get some weights and measurements. Okay, so as you can see, I pulled the scale out along with my 2020 METANIUM, and we're going to compare weights and measurements between these two reels. Now this reel feels super light, and it comes in at 4.8 ounces. So this reel is about the same weight as Shimano's ALDEBARAN 30. And the METANIUM feels significantly heavier, coming in at 6.16 ounces. So this is still a light reel, but it is definitely noticeably heavier than the DEEZ 8. But in Shimano's defense, this entire reel is made of magnesium, while the DEEZ 8 has the carbon side plates. Alright, so let's get to the spools. I'm really curious to see what the spools of the DEEZ 8 weigh. Okay, so here's the brake system of the DEEZ 8. And this is the MagTrax 3, meaning that it's got two banks of magnets instead of just one. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but this bank of magnets, the magnets are thicker than these, and I believe you can remove them if you want to get less braking. And that's what MagTrax 3 is versus the standard MagTrax that you find on other Abu Garcia mag reels. And of course you adjust with this dial. Alright, so let's pull this spool out. As you can see, it is a short spool shaft that looks to be made of aluminum. And Abu Garcia is the only JDM company I see coming with these aluminum spool shafts. I'm not sure if Shimano's going to adopt that or not, or if DAIWA has on some of their reels, but that is definitely a weight savings versus steel. But it is 32 millimeters, and you can see it's got this big plate here for those magnets to interact with. Alright, so let's switch over to grams. Okay, so the deep spool feels relatively light. 9.8 grams with the bearing. Okay, so what about the shallow spool? As you can see, it's shallow, but not nearly as shallow as Abu Garcia's Bay Finesse reels, and it feels pretty light as well. 9.4, so not super ultra light, and that's because, once again, the guy who designed this reel does compete in bass tournaments, and usually when they go finesse, they don't go super ultralight bait finesse like I do. They're probably throwing, you know, the lightest they'll throw is like a 1/4 ounce. Alright, so let's pull the spool out on the METANIUM. Here we go with the METANIUM's MGL3 spool. 14 grams. Now of course this has a bearing, and I don't want to pull the bearing off. I don't want to fiddle with that rubber O-ring. I don't know if you guys can see it. That's right above the bearing, but this spool probably weighs about 12.4 grams without the bearing. But I am going to pull the bearings off of these spools and get a true weight on them. So we got a slight change of plan as I cannot find my bearing remover tool, but if these are the standard 5x11x4 spool bearings, then the deep spool should weigh somewhere slightly under 8.5 grams, while the shallow spool probably weighs right under 8 grams, probably like 7.9. just from my estimation. So both of these spool weights are well under what I would consider acceptable for bait finesse, even though this is not a bait finesse spool. Now, to wrap this video up, Billy told me that I can play with this reel for a few months because apparently where he lives everything is already iced over. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this reel up against the 2020 METANIUM in a very, very special cast battle against 3 other reels that you definitely don't want to miss. And those 3 reels are going to be from DAIWA. So it's going to be a good old Shimano versus Abu Garcia versus DAIWA battle. But this was not the only reel that Billy sent me. And to end this video off, I'm going to show you some reels that I have sitting waiting on reviews that I'm going to be doing soon. You got your PISCIFUN Spark Pro. You got your PISCIFUN, I guess it's called a LEWS budget swim bait reel. And then the reel that Billy sent along with the DEEZ 8, and the reel that I am the most excited about is going to be a Mike Morgan. And then of course I also have a reel coming in from the Tackle Warehouse Black Friday sale. So be on the lookout for that. I wish I had more time to do these reviews, but I do have a full-time job. YouTube is not my job. That I really barely have time to do these videos as well as get any personal fishing time done. But I'm going to do my best with the upcoming days I have off due to the pagan holiday. So be on the lookout for that. Alright guys, thanks a lot.